GenderqueerChat. So it's Tuesday and very early in the morning over here. So I thought I would try to make a video for this topic. I tried once already and it was really difficult and I didn't go anywhere in the direction that I wanted. So hopefully this one will come out good. So the question this week is, how does your gender relate to your sexuality? So I think the first thing to do that would be really helpful for me is to kind of vaguely and quickly talk about my gender and my sexuality. I remember it was like a week or two ago, we all did videos on like what is our gender. So I think more in-depth kind of stuff on that would be like a few weeks ago. But just quickly, I guess you could say that my gender is fluid, or gender fluid, and I also identify as trans, and sometimes I use a word that no one else seems to use, so I guess it's a unique word that I made. It's trans fluid, so I use both those things, and those both, I guess you could say, kind of relate to gender, although when I talk about my transness, I think to me that means something a lot more physical and like biologically based, and relates to like dysphoria and stuff like that. So in answering this question, I just thought I would put those things out there because that's kind of what I experience as far as gender. And then let's see. Yeah, and then sexuality, as far as that goes, that's kind of an interesting thing because for me, I think that's kind of changed, and I've experienced some different phases in a way. I really tried to do the hetero thing. I tried to do the hetero man thing for like a good year or 2 years or something, about like 5 years ago or whatever, and I didn't even know about the existence of trans or genderqueer or any of that. It was pretty much all binary hetero stuff that was being pushed on me, and I was like, what the fuck is all this discomfort and pain, So thankfully I moved through that, but I think my sexuality has kind of evolved, and my gender as well, or at least my understanding of these things really was kind of opened, I suppose, and changed a bit. I definitely, I think as far as gender, there's never anything about that that's really like changed, but it's sort of, I've discovered more and more about that. And then my sexuality, I think, actually has changed in some ways. So I guess I'll talk more about that stuff. So I think these things relate because they're something that I sort of just, I guess, mentally kind of took sort of together or whatever. Even though they're different, like I would process these things sort of around the same time, or issues of like gender-related issues would come up in these like really binary-dominated kind of heteronormative spaces, like the whole party scene thing that I totally don't do anymore. And all that stuff brought up a lot of these things, like body-related issues or considerations or whatever, and my discomfort with different roles. Hopefully this makes some sense. It's just those circumstances were very uncomfortable for me, and it brought to the forefront a lot of the things that I'm particularly, that I understand better now, but that I was certainly particularly upset by, and I didn't really know it. So I think I figured out how these things relate with each other. I figured that out over time, and I expect that these things can change a bit. So I mean, it's hard to say like this is how they relate. So this is my way of relating to you guys, how they sort of relate. I think I at least, in those circumstances, at least discovered that I was like attracted to women, in like the oversimplified sense. I'm gonna use some of these terms that in a sort of simplified way. I was attracted to women, and I think retrospectively I was also really attracted to a lot of the guys that I was around and that were at different parties and stuff. Sometimes more so than the women. But I didn't know that, and it was also kind of a period of denial, which was really fucking hard for me. But there was that. Let's see, where was I going with that? I really do hope this makes sense. I don't know. I haven't really talked about this stuff much before. Yeah, so I kind of came to understand my sexuality better through those experiences, which were really uncomfortable at times, and I would discover like, oh, I'm attracted to women, but it was like, well, not like these guys are, not like these men, and like I knew that not all men were like aggressive and stuff like that. There were some other guys, but it was like, I still don't even relate to it like that, and like I don't like the idea of being in this role, or when people would be kind of expecting that of me or something, I would be like, no, I'm not going to do that, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't comfortable with using my body in the ways that I felt were quite expected of me by all of these cis hetero people for the most part. Not to be negative to that category of people, I'm just saying there was a lot of those type of people, and I really didn't fit in a lot of ways. So I wasn't comfortable with those kind of misperceptions, and that brought up for me that there's gender and sexuality, and like I experienced my sexuality this way, and that almost brought up gender, and how my gender was different, or at least how I experienced my body and my gender and stuff like that was very different than what I saw around me. So I guess that helps me. That helped me to eventually I was more open to things, and now I spend a lot of time with myself, and I do explore these things. Although I feel pretty like I've pretty much figured out a lot of this stuff, even when some of it is very fluid. Does this make sense? So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say how they relate, except that I've discovered that they do kind of relate, but they're also unrelated things. I think, they're not. Like just because I might have times where I'm a bit more like, oh my god, hey guys, and stuff like that, does not make me a gay man. However, I would acknowledge that like there's something rather complex that can go on with my experience, which I think involves a mix of my gender fluidity, my transness, and social experiences, which means that sometimes every like once in a blue moon I feel a bit like a gay man, and that's like an obscure aspect of my gender fluidity, kind of aligning with my transness, or some aspect of my trans fluidity, and all these other elements and like social stuff, or in a certain circumstance, and I'll just feel more attracted to guys, almost as something like a guy. So yeah. So that's one way that my gender can relate to my sexuality. Yeah, so that's a little bit complicated. I think on average, I do consider myself pansexual. So basically I'm open to anybody, pretty much. I could be attracted to any person at like an individual level, and I don't really mind the way that a person's body is. I prefer to be respectful of that person, like however they identify, if you will, and however they interpret their body, etc. So that's kind of what matters to me, is to be respectful of people, and if I'm sexually attracted to someone, it may be, that I'm attracted to some aesthetic thing or something like that. So So try to be aware of that, so that if I ever got into some relationship, it wouldn't be over some frivolous thing, because I would like to have a bit more meaningful of a relationship if I were to do something like that. Yeah. That being said, I don't really feel comfortable with the idea of being in really sexual situations where there's like physical contact and stuff with cis and hetero people. Although I can experience attraction to them, I don't really feel like they would understand a lot of the things that I go through related to like my transness and all of that. So because they don't understand that complexity at an experiential level, like at all, that kind of keeps me from wanting to even be involved in, with them. And plus, I also feel like my my desire to like engage in sexual activity is rather low, which doesn't necessarily relate to my libido or anything else. I just don't really feel like it's that big a deal, and it's not really something I want to go after. I'm also rather repulsed at times, just because the whole party scene and all that shit, it was pretty heavy, and there was a lot of shit that went on, and it was just kind of disgusting. So although I feel a lot better about things now, and it's been like years, I think I do still feel a bit of repulsion to that kind of thing, because I've just seen the binary in a really raw and aggressive, disgusting, dehumanizing form. It's just really, I don't know, it wasn't really nice to me, and I also had a really bad childhood, so that fucked up a lot of stuff. So anyways, how gender relates to my sexuality, yeah, probably just the kind of stuff that I talked about. I don't know, it's really hard for me to put it into a nice package. I think what I talked about as far as sometimes experiencing it like a gay man is a reasonable sort of packaged way that gender can sometimes relate to sexuality. But again, that's like obscure. I guess primarily I experience it just in like a pansexual way, and more like as a woman. And it's hard for me to really describe what that means to me. But basically, I tend to find people attractive, and I do like lots of kinds of people. And also, I'm not really comfortable with being perceived as a man, or as like a guy in some kind of relationship, and I would never be comfortable really, well, maybe there would be situations where I'd be kind of comfortable with my body being perceived or expected to be used in a certain, male or masculine kind of way, but for the most part I really wouldn't be cool with that. And I suppose that relates to my gender, and that it relates to my transness, where it's like a body thing, and I'm like, I just don't want to do that. But other ways, like, that I don't want to get into detail of, I would be cool with. Yeah, so this is kind of a long video, so hopefully that made some sense. I know I talked about a lot of stuff really fast, because that's what I do. But hopefully that makes some sense. Really looking forward to other people's videos and stuff. And yeah, I guess I'll just wrap it up there. It's complicated. Yep. So I think we have some new people that are going to get to be on the channel. We're going to double up some days and stuff. And they should be able to be on the channel probably whenever they feel like it. Yeah. So welcome to all of you. Hope you'll really enjoy the channel and getting to be a part of it. I know I have. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening, and hope you'll have a great week. Bye.